you're going to be in church on Sunday morning. And I come to acknowledge to some parents today, I don't care how old your children are. If they're going to be under your roof, you need to make them come to church. Church is the only place that they will find relief. Church is the only place that they will understand that when their friends forsake them, that Jesus will never leave them nor forsake them. You got to understand that it was at a time that my father, he would say this to me all the time, as Joshua said it, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Don't worry, children, I ain't all over your back. We get ready to flip the script on the adults. One of the reasons why they don't want to come to church because when they get here, they come into a bunch of mess. We want to talk about Moses for a minute. Moses in his time leading the children of Israel. And they were cut off. Why were they cut off? Because they were murmuring and complaining. They didn't know how to keep their mouth shut. They didn't know how to treat the man of God. They murmured, they complained, they were out of bondage, but they couldn't shake the spirit of bondage off. So what did God do? What God did was birth a new generation that knew nothing about bondage. And as Moses was preparing them for their promise, the ones who were receiving a word from Moses, they did not know nothing but the wilderness. And some of our young folk don't know nothing but wilderness experiences. What is the wilderness? The wilderness is the place of your transition. You're not at a place of the promise, but you're not where you were. What happens to many of us in transition is we become unstable. Y'all heard me tell you before, you're double-minded. You've been in, you've been out, you've been running up and down. Have you ever got a word from the Lord? And the Lord woke you up early in the morning. Come on. And he began to tell you what he would do for you. Come on. What he would do in you. And how he's going to use you to do his will. And what I come to suggest to you today is that between a prophecy and a promise is a process. And that process becomes painful. And in that process is what they call growing pains. That's the reason why I say that hurting people hurt others. And we began to question if it was God in the first place that allowed us to go through this process. We have the human nature in us that we began to question God. God told me to go over here. And he told me not to go over there. God told me to leave this one alone. He told me to hook up with that one. And now it seems that I'm worse off than I ever been before. And that's when you get instability. Because people are looking at you and they don't know what you've been going through, and on the outside, you're looking all crazy. So Paul begins to teach us that we need to be made new in the attitude of our mind. When we look at Romans 12 chapter and the second verse, it begins to tell us, be ye not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Yes. Because what Paul wants to deal with are the strongholds that are in our life. And we're back in Ephesians where he began to tell us. He says in verse 24, 25, 26, he says, stop telling tales and speak the truth to your neighbor. Because we're all members of one body. We're not different in anybody. We got the same body, and that name is Jesus. Just look at your neighbor and say, we are in Jesus. We are family. There's no reason for me to begin to be mad at you if we serve the same God. And when we get mad, he says, don't let the sun go down upon your wrath. He says, don't you go to bed mad. Don't you go to bed angry. Don't you go to bed with your mind all messed up. What I need you to do is go and tell somebody I'm sorry for the way my attitude is. I'm sorry I acted in that way. And I want to help somebody right now because I feel it in my spirit that's going in your mind. Well, I ain't do nothing to them. Yes, you did. Because you did not greet them with a holy kiss in the name of the Lord. So you're just as wrong as they are. Because when you stay away from your brother or sister, because you don't like the way that they do, you begin to walk away from the commands of the Lord. And Jesus left this last command with us, that ye love one another as I have loved you. And so the Bible says that you don't give the devil a foothold on you, that you don't let him put a stronghold on you. In other words, what the stronghold is something that holds you strong. And some of you got an attitude against folk just because they can't do it the way you do, just because they won't walk like you do. But you got to lose that attitude, because every time you got that attitude, you let the devil put his foot in the door. And when he gets his foot in the door, not only will you have attitude against that person, but you're going to start having attitude against the whole neighborhood. You're going to have attitude against the whole church, because you gave the devil a foothold. And Paul says, don't give to the devil. Don't let him have that foothold. You ought to look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, I need a new attitude, because my attitude stinks. I can't stop talking to you. I need to acknowledge how you hurt me, how you messed me up, how you got me feeling some type of way. And when I get it off of me, I put it back in your court, so that I can do the will of God. And if you really want to do the will of God, I'm sorry, my friend, but I want to pull you up on your low awareness. You don't recognize that how you treated me, I didn't like how you did me. And so now what I want to do, I want to let you know that it hurt me. Even though you hurt me, I want you to know I forgive you, because my Father in heaven forgave me. I want to let you know that you can't hurt me no more, because I'm not giving the devil a foothold to get in. I don't want him to take over my life. But what Paul says that will help you to get through this, he said, don't let no unwholesome talk come out of your mouths. We're in verse 29. But he says, but only that which is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. And one thing I find, that if you're not spiritually minded, you will go crazy in the middle of the process. And the young folk will begin to look at you like you've gone crazy. You ought to remember what I told you, that Moses was speaking to a new generation in the wilderness, that they knew nothing but process. They knew nothing but transition. And no doubt some of them heard their parents sitting in a room talking about the pastor. They heard their parents sitting in the room talking about how bad stuff is going in the church. They heard them talking on the telephone how they don't think that they want to go back to church. And then you wonder why the children don't want to come to church, because they don't want to be a part of all your mess. They don't want to be a part of that type of stuff. And that's the reason why I come to you today, as the Spirit of the Lord led me, that you got to get a new attitude. Look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor it's time to get a new attitude. Because Paul begins to tell us, don't you grieve the Holy Spirit, with whom you were sealed unto the day of redemption. All that means is God is trying to preserve you. God is trying to keep you until he brings you home. And if God can fix you, he can fix somebody else. Paul begins to tell us, in order to get a new attitude, you got to get rid of all your bitterness. Because one thing I find, that when God begins to work on you, you shouldn't be bitter, but you ought to get a little bit better. Paul says, get rid of bitterness. Then he tells us that when God is doing what he's doing, you need to get rid of your rage. You need to get rid of your anger. You need to stop fighting and stop slandering folk. And he says you need to get rid of every form of malice. in the Bible. Verse number 30 says that you need to be kind. You need to be compassionate to one another, forgiving one another, just as Christ has forgave you. I feel like preaching up in this place. You don't know like I know what the Lord has done for me. You don't know what it took for me to be at this place in my life. You don't know what God has done. I may not be where I'm going, but I thank God that I'm not where I was. You ought to just tell somebody that if you only knew me before I got saved, if you only knew the life that I lived and the places I used to go, but Jesus looked beyond my faults and he saw my needs. Is there anybody in here that you're glad God didn't look at where you are, but he looked at where he's taking you? That some of you had some bad things in your life that caused you a bad attitude, that you've been going through some stuff for a long time, but God is letting you know that because of your affliction, because of your pain, that you're starting to learn that his grace is sufficient and his strength is made perfect in your weakness. There's going to be some folk that are going to come through these doors that are going to be looking for forgiveness, and they're not going to look like we look. Some of them are going to have piercings. Some of them are going to have a bunch of tattoos. Some of them are going to be wearing low skirts. Some of them are going to be wearing their pants down. But I got news to tell you. They need to be healed. They need salvation. And it's time to forgive them as Jesus did for us, that they might live. I got to tell somebody that you got to recognize as Jesus was on the cross, he sat back, even though we nailed the nails, he sat back, and when he sat back, he said, Father, ding, forgive them, ding, for they know not, ding, what they do, pierced in their side, and then he hung his head, and then he died, because he had an attitude of gratitude, and some of you can't say, God, I thank you that I got a chance to live. It's all about what you got, but you don't need it. You need him, and the attitude ought to be, God, I thank you for letting me see another day. God, I don't feel as good as I want, but I feel good enough to sit in the house of the Lord. Where I'm going, but I walk with you. Somebody give God a praise. Hallelujah. We need a new attitude. I need a change in my life. Can't keep walking the same. I got to let somebody know that Jesus is the Lord of my life. Now, when you cuss me, I ain't gonna cuss you. I'm just gonna let you know he's still good in spite of your cussing. He's still good in spite of you stabbing me in my back. Because one thing that I do know, you might be able to kill my body, but you'll never take my soul. Amen. Amen. I decided I need Jesus. I need him more than I need anybody else in my life. Do I love people that are part of my life? Yes, I do. But y'all can't help me. Not like Jesus can. When they use you to help me to get where he wants me to go, yes. He'll do the same for you. And you got to be careful at how your attitude is in burning bridges with people. Because some of the very people that you burn those bridges with are the very people that are going to take you to your next level. Be careful. Yes. Be careful how you treat people. Because you never know if you're entertaining an angel unaware. Don't you think that God can use any one of you to inhabit your body, to become himself in you? And then one day he may come and he may start acting a little bit crazy just to see how you are. And then you got burned the bridge and then God said, back to the drawing board.
Back to the drawing board.
Some of you have been forfeiting your destiny because of your attitude. And that's the reason why you're still stuck where you are. That's the reason why you can't go to the next level, because your attitude stinks. And it's time for us to get a new attitude. Stand with me.